Hello. Thank you for joining us today, and welcome to this FSB national webinar on selling online from startup to success. I'm Michael Weedon, and I chair the FSB Retail and High Street Policy Unit. Today's session is being recorded and will shortly be available on our on-demand page on the FSB website, in case you want to watch it again or bring it to other people's attention. And the FSB, as you will have seen on the opening slide, has a new e-commerce hub full of details to help small businesses find their way forward. And as I say, you've seen that address on the opening slide, and we'll show it again at the end. By the way, if you aren't yet an FSB member, we'd love to have the opportunity to speak to you further about the benefits of joining. So please do visit our website, FSB.org.uk, to book a meeting with a membership advisor. Everyone's selling something. I'm selling that today, but I'm a member. Now, e-commerce accounted for more than 100 billion quid in sales in the UK last year. The share of the market peaked at about a third of all sales in the first two pandemic years, and it's settled back to a little bit above just a quarter of total retail sales. During that period, the number of pure play online only retailers, startups, rose by 10,000. Almost all of them small businesses. They always are. 99% of businesses are small businesses. This is no different in that respect. But this wasn't just a story all about pure play online retailers. During the pandemic, the gain in online sales by property-based businesses was much higher than it was for online-only businesses. Everyone got in on the game. This was true, in fact, also for goods, for food, for services, and for hospitality. Consumers, we're all consumers as well, remember, now expect to be able to buy from you in all the ways they want, when they want. But with standalone websites, platforms, marketplaces, social media, commerce, there has never been more or better opportunities for small businesses. But where do you start with this, and where do you go next? So we're going to hear from some experts with hard real-world experience, how they reckon it's best to do it. These are all battle-hardened individuals as far as this is concerned. We're going to have a quick discussion. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves one by one so you know who you're listening to. But we will then have a discussion around a number of questions which I've put to them. We know that they're going to have opinions on these things, but we're very interested in seeing what your questions are. Because in the last quarter of this webinar, we will put those questions to our experts to see what they say. And right at the end, I'm going to ask them, out of their great breadth of their experience, for their top tip. A real takeaway for everybody. So let's ask them to introduce themselves one by one. Just briefly, so you know who you're listening to. I'm going to take this in first name order. So Eloise, could you unmute and say hello?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dr. Eloise Finch. I'm CEO and founder of Sell Beyond. We're an Amazon management consultancy. We help brands, big and small, grow on Amazon in the UK, in Europe, and the USA.
Admirably clear, thank you. Could I ask Kate to introduce herself, please?
Hello, I'm Kate Findlay. I'm the owner and chief CEO, I suppose, of Peach Perfect Presents. That's an online gift shop. We launched initially 7 years ago on a bespoke platform and then relaunched on Shopify about 5 years ago. And I'm more than happy to share all my experiences, largely gained through making mistakes as I went along, with you now.
And Paul, say hello.
Good afternoon. I'm Paul Stevens. I'm the founder and director of HelpLocks, Locksmith and Home Security. As you can imagine, we have our locksmith and home security services that we provide around West Yorkshire, but we also now have our e-commerce leg of the business that we've been running for the last 3 years successfully, a little bit before that not so successfully, which I'm sure we'll get into later, and soon to have a second crack at e-commerce with muggram.com also.
Thank you. There's a lot of talk about tactics at events like this, the details, the things which you'll take away and apply in particular circumstances. But I'm aware that each of our panelists today has very strong and educated views on the importance of strategy. I've already said how many different ways there are of selling online, all sorts of different structures and ways of doing it. What I want to know really, and I have built websites in the past, in fact, I built marketplaces in the past, it weren't very good, it was 20 odd years ago, that things have moved on since then, is what they would say in terms of strategy for a startup. Where's the best place to start? Because you will end up somewhere else later, and we'll probably discuss that. I would like in the first instance, I think I'll bring in Kate on this question. Kate, over to you.
Okay, well, when I started 7 years ago, really Facebook wasn't a big deal in terms of selling online. Certainly if I started again, I would probably start with a proof of concept on Facebook, because you can sell quite well on Facebook now. But what I didn't want to do was be part of a marketplace, because we've always intended to be a destination website. We're not selling by price. The idea is to solve people's problems when they need a gift for an occasion, for a special friend, or a wedding, engagement, anything. Then we want them to come to Peach Perfect to get gift ideas and to solve the problem of what gift to buy. So for us, starting on a marketplace was not what we wanted. I don't want my brand to be mixed up with Amazon's, for instance. So that was our strategy. But as I said, it was 7 years ago. And probably now I would start with a Facebook shop, because that's easy and cheap and accessible.
Paul, could I bring you in here? I think you have a slightly different approach. We've heard in a way the idea that's kind of, if you build it, they will come. Let's set up on our own brand. Let's foreground that with the website and so forth. You took, I think, a slightly different approach, didn't you?
Yeah, I think with HelpLocks, because we weren't selling our own products as in our own HelpLocks brand, we're selling products by other manufacturers as a reseller. So initially, when we first tried this, realizing that e-commerce, certainly as time goes by, is going to become more and more important. I think the figures tell us that. So we thought, originally, build it, they will come. If we throw all the locks and all these great brands and all these great products online, what could possibly go wrong? And truth is, everything, it just bombed. And I think in the first year, at our first attempt, my annual turnover was £6.50. So I had to go away, and it really was about learning from that and realizing that I needed to source my products better so that I could price them better, because if you're competing with somebody for the same product, being online, it is going to be price led a lot of the time. So if you've got your own brand, that's fine, but when you're reselling, you've really got to be on point with what you're selling it for. So it really was about getting the ducks in a row, making the relationships with the manufacturers so that we can sell the products at the sort of online prices that people are expecting to find the products for. Then you're looking at, are we going to post it or can we drop ship it? So you think like big home safes, we've an arrangement to drop ship them, and there's lots of products on our page that will go direct from the manufacturer. So there's lots to consider, and it took me really 2 or 3 years to form the relationships that I needed to get the products and the brands that I wanted on my website that would reflect well of HelpLocks all together. So nothing happened overnight. And actually the easy bit in the end was paying somebody to build the extension on my website to put all this together. But the networking and the building of relationships is where all this started. But my goodness, what a difference. And so for me, the getting your ducks in a row, even if it takes time, is absolutely where it all starts for me. And then building a strategy of where you're going to get found, where you're going to be seeing the SEO, are you going to go to Amazon? But first of all, for me, it was all about where am I sourcing this product from, who from, how's it going to be sent, how am I going to get this to somebody's house at a price that they're expecting to pay, not what I have to sell it for, and how can I, pull a few strings to make that happen. So a lot of work in the pre-launch, if you like.
Okay, so it starts before the website, and it's always good to start the webinar with some ducks, which is nice, keeps us down to earth. Eloise, I think you probably have some very expert views on this with your experience with the Amazon platform.
Of course. So where do you start if you want to sell online? Picking up from Paul's point, it's crucial before you start to think of the platform, whether it's a website, Shopify, Amazon, eBay, Etsy. You really do need to do the numbers and the sourcing, because that's going to inform a lot of things going down the line. The second thing, I wouldn't say everyone needs to sell on Amazon. Everybody's there on Amazon shopping. It's a great place because you've already got the traffic. You don't need to bring people into a destination because Amazon is the destination. That might have branding issues, like Kate has said, but it's not right for everyone. And I would say from when you're starting, if you've not done anything, make a choice and stick to it. It could be Facebook, Instagram, it could be Amazon, it could be a website. But I see a lot of early stage businesses try and fight a war on two fronts. That means try and do two things. It's really hard to build a website with all of the things, the SEO and the Google ads and the Facebook traffic, and also build an Amazon business. So right at the beginning, whether or not Amazon is right for you, could be, but just do one thing and try with one platform rather than spread yourself thin across a lot of them.
Yes, thank you. I mean, this makes a great deal of sense. You start with one thing, even if I suspect that one thing turns out to be a misstep. A lot of businesses make missteps in things, whether it's having a shop in the wrong place or getting their branding wrong or going online and so forth. Can I bring you back in on this, Kate? Because I wouldn't say you made a misstep, but I think you revised your strategy partway through after a while. Is that fair to say?
Yes, I did technically. I think one thing I would probably do differently. So we've always tried to be all things to all people. So the first few years were all about building up the range of stock, and it includes collections right across the board and trying to aim at everybody and every occasion. I think what we've now realized is we found a niche, basically. Find your niche first and target that. Don't try to target too much. And I think that's one reason why now I would probably start with Facebook and only with a very small quantity of products, not the whole range. The other thing I would like to pick up on is what Paul and Eloise have also said, which is about the traffic. Initially, you have to pay for traffic in one way or another, whether that's going to Amazon and paying them for the traffic, or in our case, it's with Google Shopping. Now, I did say that we're not trying to be price competitive, but to get initial traffic to your website, you really do have to pay and get some products out there that people are searching for, and they have to be price competitive, and you have to pay Google for that privilege before you build up the organic traffic with good SEO, which takes time.
Thank you. I mean, I want to come back on several occasions, I think, on the marketing aspect of this and being found. If you build it, they will come. Well, how will they know where you are is the real question there. One question I would ask, and you can all answer this. I'll start, I think, with Paul. You had someone building your website and you paid them some money to do it. Should we be trying to do this stuff ourselves? Or should we make a business decision at this point that I'm going to invest this much in somebody else doing the actual work for me? And this is both getting the system together, but also putting the content into it, because content can take an awful lot of time. In a shop, if you've got a product, you can pick it up out of the box and put it on the shelf. You can't do that online, can you? What do you reckon, Paul? What's the best way?
I think it's going to come down to your own capability or what team you have around you. For me, my first store, I did try to self-build on One-on-One, my website. That might not be the only reason I I turned over £6.50, but I don't think it helped that I'd done it myself. And knowing my capabilities, I have a good understanding of SEO, I have a good understanding of websites. Can I build them? Absolutely not. So for me, giving that to somebody who is an absolute expert in that area was a no-brainer. And to put this into context, I did find some ways to shortcut it a little, where my initial website, it cost £5,000 to have built. The add-on of having the e-commerce site was actually 1,500. So 1,500 on its own is a figure, but when in the context of my website already cost £5,000 before we had the add-on, it wasn't a massive leap from what we had already. And in terms of the text having all that ready, because I'd worked so hard with the manufacturers before we pulled all this stock in, what I managed to ask them for and get them all to agree to was to create a CSV file for me. So rather than my web design having to upload everything one by one, this is how we kept the price low and have all the script done, we had the CSV files with all of the information about all the products just uploaded on one file from each manufacturer. So we managed to create a massive shortcut in terms of time, finance, and have all the script there. Now, of course, with SEO, we have to do a little bit of work after that. So even if it's creating a short paragraph on the key pages that we want to rank higher, or the key products, just so that you've not got copied text just straight away, but there are ways to trick it. But the main body of this site was turned around quite quickly because we had the support and the cooperation of the brands that we'd chosen to work with. So that is a little sneak peek into how to save a small fortune, because I think if we'd have uploaded those products one by one and done all the text and shipped all that work out to other people, I think you're looking at £10,000, but we got it done for 1,500. So there are ways if you work around it.
Yeah, and I mean, this is something I was aware of when we launched this site. This marketplace I was talking about 20 odd years ago, is that actually the manufacturers, for the most part, didn't have the images. And we actually had to actually create them all. Helpfully, I was running a publishing company, so we had the cameras and things like that, but it wasn't there. The content wasn't actually there. Can I bring Eloise in, because the opposite of rolling your own website with your own brand and so forth is the astonishing infrastructure which exists within Amazon. Everything from promotion to actually hosting the data and the product list and so forth, through to money and fulfillment. Are even then small businesses best starting off getting someone to help them do this, or should they try and just pile into what I guess might be a bit complicated dealing with Amazon?
It's deceptively simple to start selling on Amazon. All you need is a credit card, the ability to have $25.99 taken out of your account every month, and an email address. So that's the attraction of Amazon. It looks really simple to set up. Ultimately, it's going to take time and resources to set it up properly. Then it's up to the business owner to decide, do they want to learn it, or should they outsource from the get-go? Crucially, Amazon is a very unwieldy platform. It's not like Shopify. It's not like WordPress. It's quite hard and very it changes all the time. So either as a business owner, you might decide, I need to know this because I can't outsource it until I know it, but know that you're going to have to struggle a lot to get it done. But if you do, I know many business owners, they might come to us later, but they've really mastered it themselves, so they know what they're getting into. Other people, particularly larger companies where they want to start selling on Amazon, may have a bit more money. They say, do you know what? Take it from us, do it properly. So either way, you must know that it's technically finicky, and somebody's going to have to spend time and money setting up, whether it's you as the business owner, a very capable member of your team, or someone else. I would just say on that side, many businesses I talk to have had a capable member of the team set the business up and then they leave, or the capable member of the team actually has other jobs. So they've done the best that they could, but the business owner doesn't really have oversight because they let someone else do it, of what actually might have gone wrong, or things might have not been set up carefully. So just know, I would say with Amazon, do it once, do it well. You choose how to spend the time and money you've got.
Okay. one of the interesting things, we're talking about Amazon because we have experts in Amazon on this, but there are other platforms as well. This difference between brand and being in a marketplace. Actually, being in a marketplace is a bit like being in a shop in a town, isn't it? That's the platform. People come to the town. People do, you know, we do have destination shops exist, but most aren't. They go to a town to do 5 things and so forth. So we can see why there is this appeal for it. It's a big machine and it can deal with all sorts of things. And it is fair to say that all analysts say that 6 out of 10 pounds spent on Amazon in this country is actually third-party businesses fulfilled by Amazon or fulfilled directly. We think of it, I think the public thinks of it as a big monster retailer. And it is a big monster retailer, but it's something else as well, isn't it? So I think this question about branding is quite key. Eloise, staying with you, can you actually promote your brand successfully, or is it just the product that does all the work in a platform such as Amazon?
Amazon has rules about how you do everything. You certainly can promote your brand. And indeed, it's a common misconception that buyers on Amazon are very price driven. And that may be the case, especially like Paul, is if you're selling someone else's products, there are other people selling that too. So you do have to be price conscious. If you have your own brand, your own label, whether you're, you know, North Face selling on Amazon, or you've created Peach Perfect Presents and you want to sell it, you certainly can. And indeed, the premium pricing is all about having a brand that you can promote. So you have to work within Amazon's guidelines. You certainly can promote a brand, but you have a lot less space to do it than a website. So we often work with businesses that are used to the real estate of a website, where you can have blogs and FAQs and lots of videos and a chatbot and all of that stuff. Amazon won't let you do it. So the expression pouring a quart into a pint pot, you have all of this marketing brand collateral awesomeness and Amazon gives you this much. So you have to be economic with what you can say, but still get those emotional triggers. Buyers on Amazon want emotional and trust responses, just like in a shop. So the answer is yes, it's limited and it's a skill to do it, but it's certainly a skill you can apply to Amazon to get your brand out there.
So coming back to Kate, standalone website, Peach Perfect, a destination. You've got to get them there once you've done the building, because doing all this building is pointless unless people turn up and buy stuff, isn't it? So what about your best ideas for promoting it in all of its senses? Because promoting can be social media, it can be SEO, it can be a whole range of things. Having built your brand website, as it were, how do people best go about investing their limited time in getting the most people to come and buy stuff? How did you do it, for example?
Well, initially you pay for it in one way or another via Google Shopping. We also do giveaways on competition sites, which is a very cheap and easy way of driving people to the website. It's not necessarily a warm audience, but some will stick around and buy. Now, really, it's about understanding what people are looking for and what problem that they are trying to solve. And that comes down to SEO, and it is well worth investing in some training or some help with SEO. Having said that, I'd be very careful about who you choose to help you, because you can be promised all sorts of things by all sorts of experts. Not by Eloise, I'm sure, but you know, people who come along and say, "Oh, we can put you on page 1 of Google's," a load of rubbish. It takes time, and it takes a lot of analysis to find out who your real audience is and what they're searching for and what they're looking for. Then, having said that, we need a lot of good content, and that was one thing I found. I'm not creative. I'm not a creative writer, so I realized I needed to invest in somebody who could write good content, and that includes the products, because obviously, you know, you get a lovely image, but you need to have a good description of it going on as well. And then we write interesting blogs about other subjects or subjects around the products, which have a lot of the long tail keywords in them, if you understand what I mean. So you can analyze, obviously with a gift shop, then the primary keywords would be like gifts for men, gifts for women, gifts from a best friend or whatever like that, but they're very competitive keywords. So you have to find, as I mentioned earlier, you have to find your niche. You have to find that element that you've got that other people don't have. And with us, it's happened to be crystals, things made with crystals and guardian angels and things like that. And we really fell into this. But once you start to realize that you've got something a bit different from everybody else and that you're being found for those specific things, then you need to capitalize on that and make the most of it.
A wise old retailer I know down in the West Country who sells both gifts but housewares and so forth said many years ago, they said, everyone thinks that selling online is cheap and you can make loads of money out of it. There are costs, exactly in the same way there are costs with real world bricks and mortar businesses. They're just different costs. It's an interesting challenge to work out who to talk to. It's a bit like, if you're going to get a website built, as Paul was saying, who do you go to? Is it somebody you know locally? Is it somebody who's built a website for you previously? Are they good at this kind of stuff? It's a bit of a minefield assessing this. What do you think, Paul? How do you find the right help in doing this? Or once again, do you just roll it yourself?
I found it through networking and talking to people. I think as business owners, we all do some degree of networking. And whilst I was deciding who's going to build my website, I sort of learnt the basics of it, so I knew what to listen out for. I wasn't just going to be led by somebody's pitch. I needed to know there were certain triggers, things I needed to hear in someone's, this is what I will do for you, to get my attention and know that they're going to be right. I looked at several people's work. I wanted to see websites they'd done. I researched them. I wanted to see where they were ranking, how they looked and how they were built. I just wanted to know that the person who was going to build my site knew and exactly what they were doing, and they were going to do a great job. And in the end, I definitely didn't go with the cheapest, but I had absolute full confidence in the person who was building the site, because I felt I'm going to build it once and I'll pay for it once. I knew so many people who have had, well, no, one gentleman, he's had 5 people build websites for him and he's not happy with any of the 5. And I think he might have spent between 1,000 and 1,500 each time, and that's money down the drain. I spent 5,000 once, and it's absolutely done the job. So that for me is, it's to me, I think you've got to have an understanding yourself of what goes into a website and what should go into a website. And then if you're still not confident to build it yourself, then outsource it, but at least have an idea, because I think just going into it blindly, well, you could be sold up the river by anybody. If you don't know what you're looking for in a builder, web builder, then you're leaving it very much to chance.
I think everyone who's on the call, and there's 3-figure numbers of people coming on the call anyway, listening to us today, clearly aren't going into it blindly, because they're trying to get some feedback from people who've actually been there and done it. SEO is a bit of a contentious issue in many places. I mean, if anyone wants 750 emails offering SEO services, I can forward them from my inbox. Most of those every day, something like this. I have no way of assessing what's a good approach to this. But of course, there's another more old-fashioned approach in a way, which is just paying for advertising. I want to come back to Eloise on this, on the Amazon side, because Amazon is I don't know how many products there are on Amazon UK, but it is the search engine for product par excellence. But also, I think increasingly businesses are drawn to pay for positionings in listing. I'm not sure what you can reveal to us about that.
Amazon is a commercial website and therefore they want your money. That's a fact. That's what we know, but everyone likes shopping on Amazon, and a lot of people love Prime, getting stuff tomorrow. So it is very important to understand the costs of selling on Amazon. You might have a referral fee to Amazon of 15%. If you're shipping through them, you're going to have advertising on top of that in most cases, because Amazon gives endless shelf space to you and your competitors. Just like Google, you may not have noticed, if you search for a bolt or something, thinking of Paul on Amazon, I'm sure there's much more technical words, there's 12 pages of search results, just like with Google. Just like with Google, 70% of people don't go beyond page 1. So you need to make sure that you're on page 1. You can do that organically. And like Kate said, the people might promise you to get to the first page of Amazon, but just like with Google, it takes time to get to the first page on Amazon. You need to sell a lot. You can also pay for a spot to go beyond above the fold. That means when you click on the search term, you see your product in the first half of the screen. So you have to factor in those costs. What many people underestimate, and what makes it really, really different to Google, I believe, Google doesn't care about the rate of sale. If I pay for a Google ad, I could decide that I could advertise on Help Blocks, and I can sell everyone to the send everyone to the Sell Beyond website, and it might cost me 25 quid a click, but Google will just let me do it. With Amazon, that's not the case. If your product doesn't sell, and there's a bunch of other metrics that you're not fulfilling, your ads won't be in the right place. They may not appear at all if you're out of stock. So just relying on ads without having the processes behind it to make sure you've got the stock in place, to make sure it's selling, make sure you've got good reviews, make sure your biometrics, blah, 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 the ads won't work. So just to understand, ads is a slightly different beast on Amazon. It very much depends on things like inventory, business process, and sales rate. It works differently to Google. You can go learn it yourself. You can get an ad agency, but an ad agency in and of itself won't help you with all of the other metrics. But it's pretty necessary because Amazon wants to make money from ads. So that's the truth.
Shocking news for everybody. That Kate, can I come to you? I mean, in terms of straightforward paid for advertising, there are many places to do this. In fact, we have a question from Cheryl. Is it better to drive traffic using offline advertising, i.e. in magazines with your website listed, or online, such as Google and so forth? There are many places to advertise and actually just pay for stuff. Is there a best way of doing this, or is it just we test this out and try it?
Well, we found from experience that offline advertising just doesn't work. People want to, with QR codes, it's getting better. If you can print a QR code in a magazine and people can just point their phone at it and go through, then I think that will improve things going forward. But if people are flicking through a magazine, they see a website listed, they're not going to go and then type that into their phone. So offline is expensive and not really very cost effective. Obviously, I've mentioned Google Shopping. That's the only sort of pay-per-click that I pay for. The ordinary sort of Google ads don't work at all, actually. Google Shopping does, because you can see the product and you can see the prices. So it does for a small portion of our range. Google Shopping works. We do some online advertising. We do some media advertising, but it's got to be online. So they've got to have a good online presence, and the website has to have a good domain authority. If people know about domain authorities, it's Google ranking. So it's got to have a good domain authority for it to be worth anything.
Paul, I think I want to come back to you on this, actually, to talk about this wraparound, because it's important. We have a strategy. We build a website, or we're in a marketplace. We built it. Will they come and paying them? Do you actually do straightforward paid advertising as well as? And I want to come back to SEO, by the way. I'm going to ask you two questions here. Somebody has asked a question in the Q&A, something which we have fallen into, which is, can you tell me what SEO actually is?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll start on the SEO then. So SEO is search engine optimization, and if you're very good at it, it should push your product or your page as high up the Google ranking. So anybody searching for a specific product or service, you should hopefully rank as highly up there. And as we've touched on before, being on page one, and whether that's in a marketplace like Amazon, whether it's on Google, or even Yale.com will try and sell you space to be at the top of their online space. So interestingly enough, though, with everything we've just been talking about, if there are any SEO people or anybody who does paid SEO, I'm going to blow everything out the water now and say I don't spend a single penny on online marketing. I am Mr. Organic, and in terms of where we put our products and where we put ourselves in order to be organic, we utilize YouTube. YouTube is the second most searched search engine on the planet after Google. It's a lot easier to, going back to SEO, to rank your videos on YouTube than it is to rank a page on Google. So the chances of you being found, particularly for a specific service or product, is actually quite strong on YouTube if you play your cards right. So it's well worth learning YouTube. We use Facebook with creative Facebook groups that for our market space, where we now have across the 3 groups, we've just hit 50,000 members of people who are interested in the sorts of things that we do, and therefore we're nurturing a large audience and still growing that audience. Amazon we do use, and because I'm a reseller of products, I'm not going to become a millionaire selling on Amazon. But what we have touched on is traffic. The traffic's there. So selling the products on Amazon and then placing a little thank you for purchasing from HelpBox card in with the product when we send it, with a little link on the back of the card to our online store. We also have our Amazon Pay option. So anybody who's bought from us on Amazon can next time come direct to us and use that Amazon account for a smooth transaction on our site. Those are sorts of tricks that we pull. So we make everything familiar, but we pop up everywhere organically. So that's kind of completely, so anybody who has ever tried to sell me advertising or pay-per-click, cover your ears now, because it's just not something we've ever found necessary. And to show that it grows, the first year that we had the store, second time around anyway, when we set it up properly, it was 10% of my business online. It grew in year 2 to 15%. And last year it grew again to 25% of my business is now online. And in fact, in the last 4 months, 30% of my business has been to e-commerce, and I've not spent a single penny on traditional strategies. Obviously, I spent 60 quid getting 2,500 of these printed, and you spend £30 a month to be on Amazon, and you give them a commission for the products you sell on there. So there are costs along the way, but for me, the traditional marketing isn't something that I buy into, but more organic listing and organic positioning, whether it be the page or individual products. So totally different to, I think, most there.
Thank you. A couple of questions have come up, which I have touched on something I'm very interested in, which is that we always talk about e-commerce in relation to products, things, stuff, maybe food stuff, but generally things you can't eat. Actually, there's as much business in services in this country as there is in commerce. And I'm well aware of this. It is a challenge in some ways to promote a service. It's less easy to find in some ways, but I can see why YouTube will be a good route for Paul, because you sell quite complicated stuff and how things are done and what you need and a bit of explanation and so forth. So I can see that it is obvious that there is a whole a completely different market. It is still e-commerce. You're still selling online with services and so forth, but you're actually doing both, aren't you, Paul? I think I just want to bring Eloise wants to come in. She's actually aggressively put her hand up. No, assertively put her hand up. Over to you, Eloise.
I've just seen, because there are quite a few comments about selling services online, and obviously I run a consultancy, so I'm actually selling services. I help people sell on Amazon, but as a business owner, I'm selling services myself. So it might be helpful to share some thoughts on these questions. Somebody has asked, what's the best route to sales if you're selling a service, and do you carry out an email campaign? For my business, I help brands sell on Amazon. So I go and find out what type of companies are selling on Amazon. It's publicly available data on Amazon, and we send them targeted emails. If people think it's interesting, then they will go and reply to the emails. So 50% of my business comes through email marketing campaigns. And as Paul has said, we have a YouTube channel, Sell Beyond, where we talk about all the nitty-gritty things that Paul's learned himself. So I'm sure he won't watch it. Our YouTube channel about the operational things you can do on Amazon has doubled my website traffic in the last year, just by doing cost-effective YouTube videos on X and Y thing to do with Amazon photography or Amazon ads or that type of thing. And so in terms of, there's somebody here who's got a coach selling courses and packages online. It's exactly this type of business. You have to figure out, is your market local? You might use Google My Business. Can I find out who wants it? Then in my case, I use email to targeted leads. Is Sales Navigator a best way? So then it depends on your market. But certainly as a service business, it's we can use the same tactics that Paul has done in a slightly different way, and it worked out for me.
Yeah, it is always worth our while understanding that there is this, everything you can sell online in some way or another. So we need to think just beyond the, the boxes going, in vans to people's doors and so forth. With hospitality, for example, there's been a massive expansion over the last 2 years in businesses operating through Just Eat and other platforms like that, which in many cases they didn't do previously. Services are interesting, and they certainly go very well, I think, with explainer videos. So YouTube is excellent for that kind of thing. But I also think that one place I see services being sold quite well is getting into conversations that people are having. Now, it might be a simple thing like next door and somebody flogging roofing or something like, which is an entirely sensible thing to flog because my roof needs a bit of fixing anyway. But actually, this brings us, I think, to another approach to all of this, and it's relevant to services, but products as well, which is the social media side, which we haven't talked about that much. Kate, I think we were talking previously about social media and how this is relevant to your kind of operation, where people chat about things and talk about things. How do you make that work for you?
Well, we've got very visual products, obviously. Now that's the whole point, is our products appeal online individually. So we use the social media platforms that are very visual. So we use Instagram, we use Facebook, and those are the two key channels. But we use them really in support of the website, as opposed to being the main drivers of sales. So obviously we can get people interested. Certainly videos get far more views than anything else. Our products don't really lend themselves to videos, but quite often I'll put on personal video, not that personal, but walking the dog or something. So I mix up the products with some more personal stuff, if you like. And that draws people in, and it makes them interested in the page, and it makes them interested in the site. But what we do is generally we write a blog for the website, and then we repurpose it. So it's not necessarily great effort. We repurpose it for Facebook and we repurpose it for Instagram, so that we've got a sort of wraparound of social media which supports the website.
So you don't think a video of a gift would be quite a good thing to stick on TikTok or something like that?
Well, we have to a degree done that, but they don't really, they're mostly not moving things. They don't really lend themselves to a great deal of video, but we are doing some more now of mix and match, sort of like picture videos, if you like, videos where the pictures of products come in and out with music surrounding it. Which is more, we'll do much more of that in the future. We've only really started to play with that.
So Eloise, do you find that when people develop their Amazon strategy, that they're using these other methods of bringing people in, not just straightforward advertising, for example, but that more engagement-based social media approach? Are they using it? There's that traffic coming to Amazon that way?
It depends on the business owner, their bandwidth, their knowledge of different platforms. Paul's obviously someone that's got a lot of experience and has tried it himself. So you will get businesses that only really focus on Amazon. They're only advertising on Amazon. They're only selling on Amazon. Many businesses will try and bring extra traffic to Amazon. So you might have a website and you might have an Amazon store, but you might occasionally run Facebook promos, for example, that will go somewhere towards Amazon in a way that's compliant with Amazon's terms and services. Not everybody knows this. If you're selling on Amazon, you might want to improve your Google, your Google My Business profile or your Facebook company page, because all of these other organic things on Google will affect the traffic going into Amazon. So in short, you can do more than selling on Amazon. You can bring traffic to it. And on Amazon now, you can also do display ads, which are those horrible things that, that follow your pairs of socks around the internet because you looked at them on Amazon. If it's right for your business, you can do those as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. The worldwide advertising snooping networks which exist, and we all have this. I mean, everyone, maybe it's just because we notice it, but I often have conversations with people on WhatsApp or whatever about, let's say, socks. That doesn't happen very often. Ducks, for example. And then the next day, all of our feeds in all of our different media are full of stuff about ducks and or socks. So I can see that that's an area I think a lot of people need to get into, because there are big costs in that as well. And there are big costs, for example, in affiliate marketing, I think too. One thing I would like to really bring out with all of this is to try and work out, when you're setting up a business, let's say we're just doing this on paper and we're going to go online, whether it's products or services, or we're going to, we're going to have a takeaway food outlet in the local town or whatever, is it more difficult to write a business plan for this? So we have a view about how much income we're going to get and what capital we've got to tie up in whatever it is, food or stock or people. Actually understanding the costs is a real challenge. I'd like to come, I think, to Kate on this, because you've been through several iterations of these. You've probably learned quite a lot about what these real costs are. How do we spot all these things with this search engine optimization, with advertising, with build costs, with keeping things up to date, and staff time and so forth? I mean, is it easy to write a budget for an operation like this?
Well, I certainly didn't find it was easy. No, I think my advice to anybody would be to do your sums, add it up, and then at least double it, because you don't make, I think we've already talked about the fact the gross profit isn't what you expect it to be, first of all, because you have to pay to get the traffic in the first place. So, your profitability is always quite low to begin with. And then you will need help. Obviously I'm on a platform, a Shopify platform. And by the way, I would always recommend somebody buy a package if they're doing e-commerce these days with their own website. Don't ever try to make a bespoke one. It doesn't work. So you've got those platform costs, but those platform costs, if you want to add functionality, you can add multiple apps with Shopify, but each one is not large in itself, but it tots up at the end of the month. Your Shopify bill that comes in is much bigger than perhaps you first thought it would be. And then you do need, well, I certainly found I needed to supplement my own skills. I've already mentioned creative writing. There's a lot of creative writing involved in a website. As I said, there's the products, there's the blogs, and then you've got all the social media stuff. So if you're not much good at it, or you haven't got the time to do it, you're going to have to pay someone to do it. And again, it's also I would say, with branding, if you're going to launch your own website, getting the branding right is very important. So you've got to get the look and feel right. And again, unless you're really creative, you have to get help. You have to pay to get help to do that in the first place. So I've just mentioned a few of the costs, and there are always more hidden costs throughout. So I would leave a huge contingency for the costs, and I'd also factor in how long you can afford not to make a profit, not to make an income out of it, because it's not an instantaneous revenue stream.
Eloise, given the sort of all-encompassing wraparound elements of, say, Amazon, is it easier to understand the costs you get into? I mean, I have known people who've got into very large costs developing websites and found that they've run away with them. Is it easier to understand it because it's a standard product, or is it just as difficult, and do people let that run away with them as well?
In my experience, but it may be that the type of people that come to an Amazon management consultancy have that problem. Most companies do not have a clear idea of their costs on Amazon. Paul Stevens aside, obviously, and I have worked with Amazon private label, Amazon businesses turning over £1 million a year that didn't realize they were in a loss position on Amazon. I had a client last year that did $300,000 a month on Amazon, but still hadn't got a clear idea of their costs. And so it was reassuring everybody, it is something that's quite tricky. So number one, I would say it depends on the type of entrepreneur that you are. If you understand that to do business, you've got to make more money than you lose, then you will know, like Paul said, you've got to get your costs in order before you start selling. I've spoken to other businesses that many businesses don't do that because it's so easy to sell. It appears that you're making a profit, but once you take off excess inventory fees or your Amazon ads or these type of things, it's quite tricky. So in conclusion, number one, as a business owner, you really should have these figures, whatever type of business you're running. Number two, on Amazon, it is more complex because Amazon make it very easy to spend your money. It's harder to figure out, and the payment terms are different to calendar months and all of that type of thing. It isn't our area of expertise. There are many accountants or bookkeepers that have expertise in online selling, understand the integrations that you can get with, you know, with Amazon or else other platforms. It's really crucial because it's fundamental on Amazon. You know all of the hidden costs and how to prevent them. So it's certainly possible, but many businesses, most in my experience, haven't got a handle on it.
We just had a really interesting question. It said, interesting to hear speakers say you don't make a profit in the first year. Anyone running any business is probably saying they're not making a profit in the first year. Having set several up myself, you think, you know, 3 years out, we'll be making some money. Make a loss in the first year, break even in the second, assuming all's gone well, actually start to make a profit in the third year. Anyone willing to admit, let's ask Paul, can you ask him, how long on this online side did it start to, was it before you started to actually make money in terms of selling online? Or were you straight into it being Paul?
I mean, the short answer is I was straight into profit. However, let's bear in mind, I already had a profitable service side, and the e-commerce was like a bolt-on. So had I just opened this store as an e-commerce store right off the bat, I think I probably would have maybe broken even in the first instance. As I said before, I already had a site that had invested £5,000 in for the service side. So the e-commerce side was a bolt-on. In terms of the keeping the site online, the fee, that didn't change. So I don't attribute that to my e-commerce. In fact, the only cost for my service business, the only costs that I can attribute solely to the e-commerce side are what I spent to be on Amazon, the online payment gateway that I have for the website, and that's really about it. Anything else is cost of sale. So purchasing products as we're selling it or increasing my stock. But really, it was profitable. Now, the margin isn't as high as the service side. So I'm not going to say you'd be an overnight millionaire, but there's a bolt onto a service-led, or what was previously a service-led business. It wasn't making a loss, let's say that, not like version 1, if you like, but version 2, once implemented correctly, it showed a small profit effectively straight away. But again, this is all part of the planning, the business that we're setting up now. I need to sell 1 product a week to make a small profit. And it's because of the way that we're setting it up and how we're setting it up. Again, it all comes down to where we're sourcing, how we're building it, the infrastructure. Everything's being done and lined up in such a way that I'm minimizing my costs right off the bat. So this comes right back to what I said at the very top of this, is just get your ducks in a row, understand what you need, shop around, and just implement your plan to the letter. But there are ways and means, there are ways to do it. Trust me, I probably sound really excited. I feel like every time I speak, I'm talking about where I've saved money or cut a cost, but that's just me. We don't burn money unnecessarily, and there are ways and means. So I'm confident even my new business will show profit in year 1.
Kate, could I just come back to you? And you can tell me, mind your own damn business. But good to see some more ducks in this, by the way. Thank you, Paul. Kate, you've been through quite a journey, I think, with this, looking at a slide deck you showed us previously. You got any comment on this? This is going to be the last question, I'm afraid, before I come back to you for your top tips and closing, because we're into the last 5 minutes. But got any comments for us, Kate?
Yes, I think I'm quite different in that my ambition has always been to grow a sizable business, probably in the end to sell it. So I've actually ploughed back in I'm not yet in profit, and that's because I keep ploughing it back in. I'm ploughing it back in terms of the breadth of products that we've got, and also in terms of the marketing budget keeps going up deliberately to grow the business. So, but what we've actually I've decided to do now is it's big enough. I've got enough product to sell, and we're getting out there now. So I'm now starting to consolidate back down. In fact, I'm not going to grow the business anymore. And I'm going to consolidate what I've got and to concentrate on niche markets now. But luckily, I don't need to. I mean, to me, it's like I'm growing my business in order to sell it eventually.
And that's always good, because one thing you always do need to think about with a business is, where does it all end? What's the exit strategy? It's not just how do I set it up and get it going because it's going to run forever, because nothing lasts forever. Neither does this webinar, unfortunately, and we could go on for hours. I've done webinars just about email marketing, for example, half a dozen webinars on social media. We can't do all of that now. We're into the last 3 minutes. I would just like to ask, and I'm going to start with Paul, for their one top takeaway. Paul.
Oh, goodness me, I think I've touched on it. It is absolutely all in your planning. I know it's a horrible cliche, the whole failing to plan is planning to fail, but my experience is that's exactly how this goes. But if you plan right, I'm going to use the ducks one last time, get those ducks in a row, make sure your strategy is absolutely watertight, and then just go for it. But the big takeaway is, you've got to go for it. Have a go at this. It really is worth a dabble if you're not doing it already.
I'm sure Eloise would agree with that, but what would your top tip be?
I would absolutely say that if you're not good at planning, find someone to help you. It's crucial. It's also important to understand from an Amazon perspective, Amazon's a really particular type of business. It's not like selling on a Shopify website. It's not like selling into a retail store or a supermarket. So even if you're a bigger business or a smaller one, understand you're dealing with a particular type of beast, particular type of profit models, particular type of service processes, and figure it out. Because if you just fly by the seat of your pants, you're more likely to come a cropper after about 3 to 6 months. So do your research. If Amazon's the right thing, understand why it's different to the other stuff and learn it.
And I'd just like then finally to bring in Kate, for I know she had a half a dozen really good ideas, but just for your top tip, Kate.
Okay, I'm going to go with beware false promises. The experts who promise they can get you on page 1 of Google, or that they can increase your domain authority by building backlinks or whatever. Just be very careful, because you can do more harm than good. There are no shortcuts. It takes time to build up your Google presence.
We got more nods from everyone on that particular point, I think, than we got on any individual thing during the whole event so far. I think this is all about building a business, but in a slightly different way. At heart, this is a business problem about branding, about those costs, understanding them, about your strategy for doing so. So in that sense, it's the same as other types of business, but it is something that very large numbers of small businesses are setting up to do. The opportunities are enormous, confusingly enormous, but they are enormous. And we are seeing growth with that within FSB membership. We can't, unfortunately, answer all of these questions. I'd quite like to get back on some of them with email later. But for example, one of the big questions I think which has come up is, where do you find someone to help you with these things? And my answer actually will be, I would start within the FSB membership. And if you're not in the FSB membership, do so. We're all good networkers running businesses because you have to be. You can't do it in a closed box. I would like to thank our panelists for coming today, Paul, Kate, and Eloise, and they'll all nod and smile at that. I won't mention ducks again. Thank you, everyone who's come along today, for taking time out of your day. And if you enjoyed the event, please do leave us a Trustpilot review, because we need promotion as well, and we really appreciate it. We'll put the slide up in a minute showing you that address for the e-commerce hub, which answers some of these questions. Where can I find more about this? Because there's a great deal of data on there that we can't put in front of you now. We look forward to seeing you build successful businesses. Frankly, we hope that you do it as a member of the FSB. So thank you to everyone, and I'll bring the webinar to a close.